On a Thursday evening, as the city's skyline shimmered with the golden hues of twilight, Victor Langston immersed himself in the comforting routine of preparing dinner. His penthouse, perched atop one of the tallest buildings in the city, buzzed softly with the hum of activity. Having spent decades building his real estate empire from the ground up, moments like this, spent alone with his thoughts and the sizzle of salmon in a pan, felt like rare treasures. The scent of rosemary filled the air as Victor diced vegetables with the precision that mirrored his business acumen. He took a sip from his glass of Chardonnay, allowing the pressures of the day to dissolve into the soothing rhythm of his culinary therapy. Cooking had become his sanctuary, a way to escape the constant demands of his corporate life. But as he stood there, something shifted in the atmosphere, as if the universe itself was holding its breath for something inevitable. The soft click of heels echoed across the hardwood floor, breaking the silence. Isabella, his wife of 15 years, entered the kitchen. There was something different about her tonight, something that put Victor on edge. She wore a sleek black dress that hugged her figure in ways he wasn't used to seeing. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup heavier than usual, and a fragrance he didn't recognize lingered in the air, one that wasn't one of the scents he had given her over the years. Victor looked up, his brow furrowing. "Going out tonight?" he asked casually, though a hint of unease crept into his voice. Isabella didn't meet his gaze. She adjusted her lipstick in the reflective surface of the microwave door and replied nonchalantly, "Yes, Victor. I have a date." For a moment, Victor froze. The knife he was holding hovered in midair, and a piece of bell pepper slipped from the blade. His mind raced to process her words, each one landing like a physical blow. A date? The audacity. The coldness in her voice made it seem as though the 15 years they had spent together were an afterthought. "With who?" Victor asked, his voice calm, though his grip on the knife tightened, his knuckles whitening. Isabella smirked, her reflection mocking him. "Diego," she said, the name rolling off her tongue with deliberate cruelty. "He's been waiting for me to finally come clean to you. Tonight's the night we celebrate." Victor carefully set the knife down, his jaw tightening. He had stood by Isabella through every misstep and failure, from her short-lived ventures in fashion design to her attempts at starting a wellness blog. He had supported her unconditionally. And now, here she was, throwing it all away with a flippant laugh. "You're not going anywhere," Victor said, his voice quiet but firm, the steel in his tone hinting at the storm brewing beneath his composed exterior. Isabella turned to face him, her expression a mixture of amusement and disdain. "Oh, Victor, don't embarrass yourself. You've always been predictable, safe. Frankly, I'm tired of it." Her words struck deep, but Victor didn't flinch. Years of navigating ruthless business deals had taught him to mask his emotions and bide his time. Isabella grabbed her purse, a designer piece Victor had given her for their anniversary, and made her way toward the door. "Think carefully," Victor called after her, his voice steady. "You have no idea what you're walking away from." She paused and glanced back, a venomous smile crossing her lips. "What am I walking away from? A boring life with a man who thinks cooking dinner makes him husband of the year. Please." With that, the door slammed shut, leaving Victor standing alone in the silence. The savory aroma of his carefully prepared meal now felt like a cruel reminder of her absence. He stared at the closed door, his mind racing. She had underestimated him. Everyone always did. Victor reached for his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in weeks. "Alex," he said when the line connected, "it's time. Execute the plan." Alex, a trusted confidant and master of discretion, didn't hesitate. "Understood, Mr. Langston. Everything is in place." Victor hung up and returned to the stove, plating his meal with meticulous care. He sat down to eat, the clinking of silverware against porcelain, the only sound in the vast penthouse. Isabella's betrayal stung, but Victor wasn't a man who let emotions dictate his actions. He had spent months preparing for this moment, quietly collecting evidence, securing assets, and fortifying his empire. Isabella thought she was walking out of his life on her terms, but Victor had been planning his countermove long before she ever considered hers. Meanwhile, Isabella was laughing over champagne at an upscale restaurant with Diego, oblivious to the web tightening around her. She had taken Victor's kindness for weakness, mistaking his patience for complacency. But Victor Langston was anything but weak. He was a strategist, a man who thrived under pressure. And now, the game was his to win. Back at the penthouse, Victor's housekeeper, Elena, knocked softly on the door. She had worked for him for years and had witnessed the cracks in his marriage long before tonight. "Senor Langston, is everything okay?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. Victor offered her a reassuring smile. "I'm fine, Elena. Take the next week off with pay. Things might get hectic around here." Elena nodded, her loyalty to Victor unwavering. Before she left, Victor retreated to his office, where files, photos, and legal documents lay neatly organized on his desk. Surveillance footage captured every clandestine meeting between Isabella and Diego. Bank statements revealed unauthorized transfers from their joint account. He had everything he needed to dismantle the facade. Victor had carefully constructed and safeguarded what mattered most, his empire. The rest of the evening passed in quiet determination as he focused on the final steps of his plan, ensuring that every detail was flawlessly executed. By the time morning arrived, movers would be at the penthouse, packing Isabella's belongings. The once cherished home, a symbol of their life together, would be sold. Her access to their shared accounts would be revoked, and her betrayal would be laid bare before her family and friends. Victor had masterminded her downfall with the same precision he applied to his business dealings. She had gravely underestimated him, and that, he knew, would be her undoing. As dawn broke over the city the next morning, Victor stood on the balcony, sipping his coffee. A sense of quiet resolve settled over him as he gazed at the skyline. He understood that by the day's end, his life would be irrevocably altered, but not diminished. Isabella and Diego would soon learn that the man they had mocked and betrayed was far more formidable than they had ever imagined. Victor's eyes remained fixed on the view as the first rays of sunlight bathed the glass towers in hues of gold. The calm of the morning felt like the eye of a storm, one he had meticulously prepared for. A light breeze rustled the papers on his desk, each one a weapon in his arsenal. Divorce papers, financial records, surveillance reports. Every piece of evidence revealed the betrayal that had unfolded behind his back. Shortly after sunrise, the movers arrived, their efficiency a testament to Alex's careful planning. By the time Isabella returned from her night with Diego, the penthouse was a mere shadow of its former self. The elegant furniture, the art pieces Victor had collected over the years, and the personal touches that had once made it feel like home were all gone. The only remnants of their shared life were neatly packed boxes, waiting to be stored in the garage. Isabella stepped out of the elevator, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. When she saw the emptiness of the living room, her breath caught in her throat. Panic surged through her, and she stormed into the kitchen, her voice rising in sharp demand. "Victor, what is the meaning of this?" Her words echoed in the hollow space, but Victor was nowhere to be seen. Instead, a man in a suit stood by the doorway, clipboard in hand, calm and composed amidst the chaos. "This property has been sold, Mrs. Langston," he said flatly, handing her a stack of papers. "You have until 5 p.m. to collect your belongings from the garage. After that, they will be moved to storage." Isabella's face drained of color. "What are you talking about? This is my home." "Not anymore," the man replied, his tone devoid of emotion. "The sale was finalized this morning. Everything has been handled according to the new owner's instructions." Her hands trembling, Isabella scanned the documents. Victor's name was on every page, his signature a stark reminder of the power he still wielded. She fumbled for her phone, dialing his number with shaking fingers. When his voicemail picked up, her frustration reached a boiling point. "Victor, what the hell is going on? You can't do this to me." Her voice cracked with desperation. "Call me back, now." She hung up and immediately dialed Diego, her supposed ally in this tangled mess, but his phone, too, went straight to voicemail. She tried again and again, her frustration growing with each failed attempt. Little did she know, Victor had already anticipated this. Diego, like her, had been caught in Victor's carefully woven trap. Across the city, Victor sat in his new office, a sleek, modern space overlooking the bustling streets below. Alex stood across from him, his expression one of quiet satisfaction. "All assets have been secured," Alex reported. "The offshore accounts are untouched, and the penthouse sale went through without a hitch. Isabella won't be able to access a single cent." Victor nodded, his attention now on Diego. Alex grinned. "Diego's done. The evidence you provided will be enough to ruin his business. His creditors are already circling, and his reputation is in shambles." Victor leaned back in his chair, a rare, fleeting moment of satisfaction, softening his otherwise stoic demeanor. "Good. Let them both see what happens when they try to play games with me." The morning unfolded like a perfectly executed plan. Isabella's frantic attempts to regain control were met with cold indifference. Her family, once admired for her grace and poise, Isabella's circle of admirers quickly shrank after the truth about her betrayal came to light. The private investigator Victor had enlisted, a thorough and detail-oriented woman named Celeste, had ensured that every aspect of Isabella's affair was documented with precision and shared with clarity. Meanwhile, Diego found himself reeling from the repercussions of his arrogance. Anonymous leaks exposing his financial wrongdoing spread swiftly, leaving him without support and facing mounting legal issues. His calls to Isabella grew more desperate, but she was too absorbed in the disintegration of her own life to offer any help. As the day wore on, Isabella finally tracked down Victor. She found him in a secluded suite of a luxury hotel, the very same place they had once celebrated his first major deal. The irony of the setting wasn't lost on her. Bursting into the room, her face twisted in a mix of rage and desperation, she confronted him. "You think this is over?" Her voice shook with emotion. "You think you can just cast me aside like yesterday's garbage?" Victor remained seated, his demeanor calm and unaffected. He motioned toward the chair across from him. "Sit," he said simply. Isabella hesitated, her anger clashing with a hint of uncertainty. Finally, she took a seat, glaring at him across the table. "This isn't about throwing you out," Victor began, his voice steady and controlled. "This is about facing the consequences. You took my trust, my loyalty, and you discarded it. Did you really believe I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't act?" Isabella opened her mouth to argue, but he raised a hand, silencing her. "I've spent months preparing for this. Every move you made, every secret meeting, every dollar you stole, it's all documented. And now you have nothing. Exactly what you deserve." Her defiance faltered, fear flickering in her eyes. "You're a monster," she whispered. "No, Isabella," Victor replied, leaning forward. "I'm a man who refuses to be a victim. You made your choices. Now, you live with them." He slid an envelope across the table. Inside were the finalized divorce papers and a modest settlement, a mere fraction of what she had hoped for. Isabella stared at the papers, her world crumbling before her. Victor stood and began buttoning his jacket. "Sign it or fight it. Either way, you lose." With those final words, he walked out, leaving her alone in the oppressive silence of her defeat. The following days served as a testament to Victor's resilience. His business flourished, and his reputation remained untarnished. Isabella and Diego, once so confident in their schemes, were now mere shadows of their former selves. For Victor, revenge wasn't about destruction. It was about reclaiming control, showing them that true strength lies not in cruelty, but in calculated resolve. As he stood on the balcony of his new home, the city spread out before him, vibrant and full of life. For the first time in months, Victor felt a profound sense of freedom. He had weathered the storm, And now the horizon lay open, ready for him to conquer. Though walking away from Isabella had given Victor a sense of control over his life, the storm he had endured left lasting scars. He had built a life on trust and shared dreams, only to realize that those dreams had been nothing but illusions. However, as the days passed, Victor made a firm resolution to rebuild. Not just his life, but himself. The media quickly seized upon Isabella's downfall. The divorce of Victor Langston, one of the city's most prominent real estate moguls, became a hot topic in gossip columns and tabloids. Speculation ran rampant, but Victor's meticulous planning ensured that the narrative remained in his favor. He was painted as a wronged husband, betrayed by a wife who had grown too accustomed to luxury and entitlement. In contrast, Isabella became a cautionary tale, a woman undone by her own greed. Isabella fought back, hiring high-profile attorneys in a bid to contest the divorce settlement. Isabella demanded a larger share of Victor's fortune, claiming emotional distress and years of unpaid labor as his wife. However, Victor's legal team, led by the formidable and Calloway, was relentless. Every accusation Isabella made was swiftly countered with irrefutable evidence of her infidelity and financial misconduct. Victor approached each court hearing with calm confidence, his presence unnerving Isabella and her team. His every move was precise and calculated, methodically dismantling Isabella's claims piece by piece. It became clear to everyone in the courtroom that Victor was not a man to be trifled with. During one particularly heated session, Isabella's attorney attempted to portray her as a victim of neglect, claiming Victor's dedication to his business had left her feeling abandoned. Victor swiftly responded by presenting photographs, financial records, and text messages between Isabella and Diego, evidence that revealed a very different reality. The courtroom fell silent as the damning evidence was displayed, and Isabella's bravado crumbled under the weight of the truth. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. The original divorce settlement was upheld, granting Isabella a modest sum that barely reflected the lavish lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. Diego, whose name had become synonymous with scandal, was left to face mounting lawsuits and financial ruin. The partnership they had envisioned, built on deceit and betrayal, lay in ashes. With the legal battles concluded, Victor shifted his focus back to his business. He immersed himself in work, expanding his empire with renewed vigor. His name became synonymous with success, and his ventures were praised for their innovation and impact on the city. However, while his professional life flourished, Victor knew he could not ignore the personal wounds that remained. One evening, Victor found himself standing before a modest restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, the same place where he had once celebrated his early success. It was a place he hadn't visited in years, a place that held memories of a time before the penthouses and boardrooms, before Isabella. The restaurant's owner, Sofia Martinez, greeted him with a warm smile, a familiar face from his past who had believed in him before his rise to prominence. Victor Langston, Sofia's voice was filled with genuine surprise. "It's been ages." "It has," Victor replied, his smile small but sincere. "I thought I'd stop by." Sofia led him to a quiet table at the back, where the soft glow of candlelight created an intimate atmosphere. They talked for hours, reminiscing about old times and catching up on the years that had passed. For the first time in what felt like forever, Victor felt a sense of normalcy, a reminder of the man he had been before ambition and betrayal consumed his life. Over the following weeks, Victor began visiting Sofia's restaurant regularly. Their conversations became a source of solace, a way for him to reconnect with simpler joys. Sofia's warmth and authenticity were a stark contrast to the cold, calculated world Victor had long inhabited. She reminded him of the importance of trust and genuine connection, qualities he had thought lost forever. Meanwhile, Isabella's life continued to unravel. Without Victor's wealth and influence, she struggled to maintain the luxurious lifestyle she had taken for granted. Friends who had once fawned over her quickly disappeared, unwilling to be associated with the scandal that now surrounded her name. Diego, too, abandoned her, fleeing the city to escape his creditors and legal troubles. Isabella moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town, a far cry from the penthouse she had once called home. She spent her days combing through job listings and trying to piece together what remained of her shattered life. Every attempt to rebuild was met with resistance. Her reputation had been tarnished beyond repair. One afternoon, Isabella received a letter in the mail. It was handwritten, addressed to her in Victor's unmistakable script. Her hands trembled as she opened it, unsure of what to expect. The letter was brief but cutting, a final reminder of the choices that had led to her downfall. Isabella, I once believed in us, in the life we built together. But trust, once broken, cannot be mended. You chose a path that left no room for redemption. I wish you the best in finding the peace you could not find with me. Victor, the words struck deep. For the first time, Isabella felt the full weight of her actions, the betrayal, the loss, and the consequences that had followed. Tears blurred her vision as she read the letter again, each word a painful reminder of what she had destroyed. It marked the end of a chapter Victor had spent months reclaiming. He was ready to move forward. Victor's visits to Sophia's restaurant became more frequent, and their bond deepened. Sophia's unwavering optimism and genuine heart provided a beacon of hope in Victor's life. One evening, as they stood outside under a canopy of stars, Victor turned to Sophia with a soft smile. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" Sophia asked, her eyes filled with curiosity. "For reminding me that life doesn't end with betrayal," Victor replied. "That there's still good in the world." Sophia smiled warmly, understanding the depth of his gratitude. "You're stronger than you think, Victor. You deserve happiness." As the city lights twinkled in the distance, Victor felt a rare sense of peace. The pain of the past had shaped him, but it no longer defined him. He had emerged from the storm stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold. And for the first time in years, Victor Langston felt truly at peace.